Welcome to another episode of The Heart of the Matter. Today we're focusing on the girl child and some of her experiences in womanhood, some of the issues they face such as low self-esteem or a lack of feeling beautiful. Today we have with us two special guests, Funto, Ibuoye and Simysola Agunbiade. Thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, well, you sound like twins. Can you tell us about yourself, Simysola? Give us a little story.
Story. Okay.
Oh, but no, your background. What do you do?
Well, two things. I am a self-esteem coach and I am a nation builder.
Okay.
Do you want me to break it down? Well, it's really pregnant with a lot of things. Self-esteem coach in the sense that I am into helping young ladies, especially teenage girls, with issues of low self-esteem. And I try to do this with varying mediums, varying ways, through my magazine. I also have an initiative that I've come together with Funto. It's called Ladies After Christ Example.
Okay, well, I'm not a coach. Well, basically, I co-found this with Simysola, and then I help young ladies, so not just teenagers, I help young ladies understand and live in the fullness of the greatness that God has called them into. Because basically, I kind of have a strong belief that there's so many potentials in every woman, and not every woman is living up to that potential. So I help them, one, to see that potential and then to live in the fullness of that. So I run an initiative called the Beautified Network for young women, asides co-founding Lace with Simysola.
And you've authored a book.
Oh yes, my first book is Beautified, for every woman's amazing guide to beauty, style, and inspiration.
Okay. So why do you do what you do? There must be a story behind what you do. So why self-esteem? What's your personal story?
Well, I think for me, the way I can really just put it in cap is God using my mess as a message. In the sense that I grew up as a young girl with, well, low self-esteem, but in the sense I didn't know what it was. I just knew that I was intimidated amongst myself, my peers. I knew that I didn't feel good enough about myself or the things I could do. I knew that I didn't believe enough in myself or in my abilities, or believe enough in what I could do as a person. You know, so I lived so much bulk of my teenage years feeling very rejected, feeling very by the side, being in the midst of my peers and just feeling like I wasn't among the cool gang. There was something wrong with me, you know, and I didn't have standards for myself, so anything anybody told me just really worked for me. So, and that created a lot of limitations for me. There were a lot of things I look back now, I know I could have achieved, but because of that, not thinking to myself that I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't pretty enough, or I could not achieve it, it just kept me on the backside. So growing up now, I have come to realize that God created us all perfectly, you know, and it's a message that is timely, especially in a time and season as now. A lot of young girls are looking out there, they're looking at the TV, they're looking at the media, they're looking at social media, celebrities, and they see these girls, they see people, well, as beautiful as they are, and they look at themselves and think they are not so good because they don't look at like what they see. You know, they think that there is something wrong with them. And because of that, you know, like, low self-esteem, you enter wrong relationships because you're looking for affirmation in the eyes of somebody else.
We'll go into relationships shortly. Funso, can you tell us why you do what you do?
Okay, well, basically, unlike Simi's story, I never had an issue with self-esteem. I think that I had a very confident teenagehood. I was very confident in myself, despite the fact that I came from a dysfunctional home. Like, my mom and my dad didn't get married to each other. They both married separate people, and then I had to live with my grandparents for a while. And, you know, there were different things that would happen, and my grandparents would say comments like, you're just as stupid as your mom, you're just an idiot, but somehow that never really got to me. So I just feel like it was probably God's grace that gave me that confidence, you know, to overcome all that I went through growing up. And so that is why I'm doing what I'm doing, like telling and helping people to see that there's so much more inside you, no matter your background. You don't have to be perfect, you don't have to be, but there's so much more that God has put into you, and that you can live, you know, your greatness regardless of your background.
Yeah, I mean, I can sort of relate to what you're both saying. Like, I was saying that I used to think I was ugly as a teenager. I really thought I was very ugly. Why? I actually don't know. Maybe because, well, my mother is light-skinned, my brother is...
really believe you thought you were ugly.
my brother, my mother and my brother, my younger brother, light-skinned. My older brother is not as dark as I am. I just had this belief that in order to be beautiful, you had to be light skinned. I had pimples. You know, I was a bit tall and lanky, and you know that the awkward thing. You know, and actually there was even a guy that said, the three of us, three friends, and used to call us the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I was the ugly, so I just believed I was ugly, and it affected even the types of relationships I went into growing up, you know. And so I think it's a very important topic. And self-esteem, we cannot take it for granted. Sure. It can either make you or break you. So how does a young girl or young lady develop a healthy self-esteem? Especially with, you know, we're talking about social media. Everyone is either a particular size, or they're wearing, you know, carrying. Some people feel like it's what you carry, your bags, your shoes, that, you know, that makes you who you are. How do you develop a healthy self-esteem despite all that is going on around you?
I'll say that self-esteem is a process. You don't wake up one day and you don't come from level of having low self-esteem and just the next day waking up and saying, oh, I'm perfect. It's a process. There are processes along the line. So but it starts with the baseline of knowing that, of each person understanding and accepting themselves just the way they are. Understanding that, for me, the way it worked for me really is I just grew up, I had the understanding that I was not a mistake and God had great plans for me. So the way I put it, I said, God says I am wonderful and fearfully made. That just really sticks into me, and it says I am wonderful and fearfully made. However I am created, with my dark skin color, with my shortness, with my skinny body, I am wonderful and fearfully made. I am not created by mistake. Understanding that and accepting myself where I am. Appreciating other people, no doubt, but being able to see myself in the mirror and appreciating myself for the way I look. That really is the baseline. That's like the jackpot. As soon as you're able to get to that point of accepting yourself, every other thing is things that you now develop on. So for me, I had to stay off a lot of things, right? So there are times when I start to think there is something that seems like it's clouding my mind. So for example, there are many times where I just went makeupless. Not because I could not, but you always felt like if I wasn't using makeup, I wasn't feeling beautiful. So there are days where I wanted to prove to myself that even without makeup, I could actually feel beautiful, because it's not really what people say, it's how you feel about yourself. So I had to go through that phase of, okay, so I'm not even wearing heels, I'm going on flats. So what? I don't need to feel tall. So it's that process and things that you do that helps grow your self-esteem.
So in terms of relationships, Funto, you just got married. Congratulations. Recently, about a year now. Is it?
Well, 6 months.
6 months. Oh, 6 months. Okay. But how you feel about yourself determine the type of relationship you go into? So for instance, I know at the time when I didn't, value myself, I attracted the wrong people. You attract who you are. So how do you find yourself so that you can attract the right person? How do you feel beautiful?
Okay, let me just go back before I got married. Before I got married, I used to be in a relationship with this guy, and as in, it was a really bad experience for me, And then because of that, I went into a rebound relationship, sort of, and then I was in this relationship with this guy who I had no reason being in a relationship, but I just wanted to, I wanted to feel that, exactly, I wanted to feel that affection that, I was still wanted, nobody should break up with me, I was still very beautiful, I just wanted that. And so exactly, and then I went into this relationship with this guy, and it was like, I shouldn't have been here. So after a while, I got to myself, and I just told myself, like, Funto, this is not working for you. At the right time, the right guy, I wasn't even looking, I wasn't even searching, and then he just came. And
okay, hold that thought. We need to take a quick break. Viewers, stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break.
Be heard, be seen. Place an ad on the heart of the matter. Reach over 15 million viewers in over 44 countries through us on Ebony Live TV.
of the Matter. We still have with us Funto and Simysola. In terms of, we're talking about relationships, what constitutes an abusive relationship? When should a girl say no?
Okay, what constitutes an abusive relationship? Basically, when you're not, I think for me, number one will be when you're not allowed to be yourself. You know, when you're trying so hard to please the other person and in the process you're completely losing who you are, then that is a form of major
Shortfall.
Yes, shortfall. If you're not allowed to be yourself, you're not allowed to shine. I'm not saying that you overpower the other person with your own being yourself and your own shining, but you know, just be yourself. But if that is out, then I think you're in an abusive relationship. So, and
So
what's that?
physical, it could be
Yes,
emotional.
and that's the root of, you know, being physical. That's the root of when you get being physically and verbally and emotionally abused.
Abusive.
That's the root. So if you're not allowed to be yourself, then you cannot say, oh, when someone is emotionally or verbally abusing you, you cannot talk back and say, oh, don't do that to me. I cannot take that, you know, because you're not.
I think, for me, I think the root of everything, even talking about low self-esteem or beauty, starts with love. And for me, what helped me, because I'd just come out of an abusive relationship, and was finding love in God. So I knew I was a Christian, but I was just serving God, you know, religiously. But I got to a point where it was like God began to speak to me. And I read this book by T.D. Jakes, The Lady, Her Lover, and Her Lord. And the lady part about loving yourself is so important. To love yourself, you know, to celebrate yourself. Most of us wait to receive love from other people, but what if it never comes? What if because sometimes a lot of people that are also, that put you down is because they don't know any better anyway, you understand? So I think the root of it is loving yourself. You know, you need to love yourself, then you need to love God. I know how God made you. You said you're fearfully and wonderfully made in His image. God does not make anything that is not beautiful. Do you understand? So I think that's key. So how does a teenage girl or a young lady focus? What are the things that what is supposed to be important to them, and what should they focus on so that they can avoid distractions?
I think it's just, firstly, knowing that there is a purpose for your life. You know, sometimes the way it is almost feels like, oh, we are living to wait for a man. You know, like, especially single ladies now. So
And I think it has to do with all this what we watch on, you know,
the
Disney cartoons,
Prince
always
Charming,
about
you
know,
know,
the
so
man.
it's almost like my life is hinged on that. The success of who I become as a lady is because of the man I marry or the man I will meet. No, but understand, the Prince Charming.
Wake you up.
No, but it's the understanding of knowing that God created me as a person for a reason. Realizing that reason and being able to go after it. So, for example, like Funto, I know that she met her husband. Just saying.
I was the day I met her.
You know, and what she was doing something in line of purpose, and then the husband came. She wasn't looking for the husband. The husband came when she was doing something in line
Seek ye
of purpose.
first the kingdom of
You
God,
know,
and
like,
all things will be added.
You know, pretty much. So it's understanding, okay, God has created me for a purpose. What is that purpose supposed to be? So even as a teenage girl, you know, whenever we have events, we always say, okay, yes, you know, and all these questions come a lot. When is the right time to have a boyfriend? It's, you know, like, is there an age? You know, they try to box you and say, it's when you're 12 to 15, or is it 17? When is the right time? But then we always say, what is your priority? Because you can be in university, you can be in secondary school, but what exactly is your priority? What is it? What are you chasing right now? So if you're in secondary school, well, if you have to chase anything, it's for you to be the best. Would that boyfriend or would that guy make you be the best? Because whether you like it or not, that having a boyfriend at a particular time is really just distraction. You know, so it's depending on your priority at that particular time. So it's knowing that God has created me for a purpose. I'm at a particular phase at this part of my life. What is my priority? And being able to line them as it is.
If the parents can nip it in the bud, then you can avoid a lot of things.
True.
So for instance, what for parents that are watching, what are their teenagers thinking? What is going on in the mind of a teenager, and how can parents know, you know, and how can they also get that information from the teens? Because for me, my parents may have been oblivious, because I mean, they would never have thought, you know, I look in the mirror and I know I'm not ugly. Do you understand? But that's what I believed. Now, how could they have found out that this is what Umi is feeling?
Okay, I think, well, because I'm married now, I've been trying to learn a whole lot and speak to people who have been married and who are parents and learn from their experiences. One thing I think our generation of parents missed was that they did not know how to relate with us. Like I said to Simi some time ago, it was so weird for me the first time I told my mom I loved you. You know, we did not have, my dad never said I love you. So I think it comes to the parents taking time to, you know, build the relationship with their teenagers. When I was a teenager, I had zero or no relationship with any of my parents. So it was, oh, how are you? How is school? Opia. How is your results coming? If you bring a bad result, they're going to scold you. If you bring a good result, you know, that kind of thing. There was no real relationship. So I think it all boils down to the parents having a real, and it doesn't even start from the teenage years. It starts from right from when they were born, you know. Like, for instance, I have little siblings who are just 2. And because I started, you know, carrying them and telling them how much I love them, my mom to now starts telling them, oh, I love you. And that, she never did that with me, you know. So I think it starts from the very beginning, building that relationship so that they can open up to you. Because I would never, even there are some things right now as I'm married, I cannot tell my mom, even though we've gone closer, but I can't tell my mom because we just did not have that relationship. So it starts from building that relationship from the start so that they can open up to you freely and you can see, you know, you can see what it is they are going through.
I agree because I think it has to do with communication. And parents actually think, you know, parents need to make their children their priority. A lot of parents focus on other things, not their children. So for me, my first job, apart from being a child of God and a wife, is being a mother. And so I'm constantly watching, and I pray to God, every Holy Spirit, reveal things to me, reveal things about my kids. So my daughter says, and I mean, it all happens, follows itself. The other day, my older daughter, she's 8, she's dark-skinned. My youngest is light-skinned, and my son is sort of light-skinned. And she said, and my mother is light-skinned, my auntie that she loves is light-skinned. She just said to me, I wish I could be, I was light-skinned, that I would have been so beautiful, something like that. And I was like, wow, she actually is feeling that way. So I had to tell her, you are beautiful. God, am I not dark-skinned? Am I not, do you think Mommy is beautiful? You know, and we had that conversation. So I'm always constantly trying to communicate. That's one thing I know that I'm trying to do, and I believe I'm doing right. Communicating with my children, being able to get them to talk to me so I can know what they're dealing with, and also, you know, nip it. So, Simysola, what are, for teens, what are their parents thinking? Because, you know, sometimes when you're a teenager, there's just a lot of conflict between parents and teens. How can teens know what their parents are thinking, and what are parents actually thinking?
Well, I think there's one thing that is constant. As you go into teenagehood, you think that you know. So a lot of teenagers think that they know. Well, they don't know as much as they think. But there's just this confidence that comes up from somewhere that they know. So whatever it is that parents are thinking, that I know better. So they just create a wall. There is a wall that they put up. And if, like she says, the friendship, the relationship has not been there from the onset, it's difficult to start coming to a 16, 17-year-old girl tomorrow to say, okay, sit down, what are you thinking? If I would look at you, I'm fine, like nothing. You know, like that relationship has to have started from a very long time. And if it has not even started, it's taking it little by little in the things that you see. And a lot of parents can be very judging. So is that, oh, you did something wrong. They judge the person, not the act. You know, so they are scolding the teen, they are scolding the teen. They are not supposed to scold the child as much as possible. You make them understand why what they are doing is wrong. You know, so rather than the person, it's the act that we should be facing, which is the act that you should be addressing. I mean, explaining it to them that, okay, this is why, because those things affect self-esteem. You know, so for example, I do something maybe innocently, and you're scolding me, and I'm thinking, okay, but I'm not really sure if it is me you are scolding or what I have done. You know,
is it because you just don't like me, as opposed to I don't like the act, I don't like what you did that was wrong?
Yeah, you know, so that parents have to get to that point of understanding that, okay, teenagers, whether you like it or not, would always build a wall. But it's how you're able to sip in gently. It's how you're able to relate with them, not judging them, trying to understand. Who says you can't spend some time? They might not talk to you, but that feeling of them knowing that you are around.
So what about because there are some people, unfortunately, that just have parents that don't love them, or are just too occupied with their own, whatever it is that they're going through, what can they do?
Do you mean the teenagers now?
Yeah, so I would say something like find a mentor.
Yeah.
So you may have a parent or okay, so let's talk about Funto now. How did you stay strong despite the fact that you were in a dysfunctional family? How did you stay strong?
Honestly, I've tried to really think about it, like really, how was I able to, overcome all that? But all I can just say is it's just God, honestly. I cannot say this is what exactly I did. But I remember that when I was very little, I think I was about 7 or 8, I made a conscious decision to, follow God. Even though I grew up, my grandparents, my grandpa was a venerable, my grandmom was a venerable's wife, so they were very churchy. We used to go to church every Sunday, but I was just born in a Christian home, but I wasn't really born again. But when I was 8, I remember one time I was in my room and then I knelt down and I just cried and said, God, I just want to be for you. I just want you to use me. So it was from then that I just don't know. It just felt like my life just turned, even though everything was still, it was still the same, but I really cannot say what exactly it is, but I just know that it was God. God probably kept me through because of the purpose that He has, for me, basically.
I think for those that do not have a relationship with God, find someone that,
represents a picture of who you want to be.
Yes, and reach out. It's important to talk because not talking causes depression. And a lot of the things that, the true spiritual warfare is in the mind, battlefield of the mind. A lot of these thoughts are not true. So it's important to speak out. So speak out to a friend, or speak out to, if it's in your church, if you go to church, somebody that you see in church that you admire, you can go and tell that person, or even in school, but obviously be careful who you talk to. Pray, that's for those that are not Christians, but it's important to pray about it. And God will always honor your prayers. He will always answer your prayers. For you, Simysola, what was the turning point for you? From having low self-esteem to being someone that, believed and loved herself?
I think it was God's word and a relationship with His word. Because that was fearfully and wonderfully made, really just did it for me. Knowing that before I was formed, He knew me and He had me in mind. So it was understanding that, it's the understanding and the revelation, the light that came out from that word, that was the turning point for me. Because from then on, I went through the phase of, okay, yes, I am not just a mistake child. My skin color is not by a mistake. God was deliberate about it. He knew it. He knew where I was headed. He knew that He had me in mind. So He was deliberate about everything. So that phase took me to accepting myself. It took me to believing in the things that I could do. And now it's taking me to the phase of being able to celebrate myself just the way I am. So it's really God's word and that relationship with His word that turned everything around for me.
I think for parents, and I hope a lot of parents are watching this as well, it's no longer business as usual. We're now in a different age. Our children are exposed to way too much.
Sure.
Not just children, teenagers, young ladies. So now there's a thing for tiny waists, or there's a thing for massive, behinds, and you find that, sometimes I watch reality TV programs and I'm like, they just have low self-esteem.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. They just don't love themselves. So that's why you go and you keep doing plastic surgery upon plastic surgery and plastic surgery. And these people came from a woman as well, from a home. Yeah. So how did they get to that point? I think it has a lot to do with parenting as well. You want to say
there
something?
There was this article I read sometime about this Jennifer Lopez, right? And I think she's about over 40 now. And it said that she had low self-esteem growing up. And it really spoke to me, and I'm like, how come? Because I remember growing up in secondary school, J-Lo was the god. Like she was the one with the body, with everything. So how can someone in that light say that all through that time she had low self-esteem? So it just spoke to me that the people that seem almost perfect have a lot of insecurities that they go through. And that is the reason why they are either covering something, or they are removing something, or they are adding something. It's that, because we look at these people and we think they are perfect, but there are so many things going on inside of them.
And to be honest, I'm not judging, but I don't think that problem has been solved, because then you find, in terms of when you're having multiple relationships, then also there's this new thing about nudity. Everybody wants to be nude. So you find you're gifted. You have an amazing voice, and I'm not naming names, but you are already a star among stars. But you still feel that to be relevant, you still have to dress half naked. You know, that's another. It all goes back to not knowing who you are, not loving yourself. You understand? And I think so I think it's very important that not just parents, you have younger ones around you, you know, there are a lot of people that sort of come to you through your programs. Can you actually even tell us a little bit about LACE, the initiative you have together?
Okay, well, basically, LACE is an acronym for Ladies After Christ Example. We started in February 2013, and we have events for teenage girls every quarter. And basically what we try to do with the events is, because we know that teenage girls want to have fun, but we want them to have the right kind of fun in the right kind of way and also impact them positively. So we try to ensure that our events are fun-filled and impactful as well. Yes, so, and then it came from a shared desire to want to help teenage girls. You know how the Bible says that the older women should help the younger women? I personally feel that the older women in our generation are focusing so much on their career, on their businesses, and they're making money, and they're not focusing on teaching the younger women. So they just leave the younger women to media, to friends, and they turn out wrong. You know, they don't turn out right in the end. So we just want to bridge that gap between older women and younger women. And then we realized that because we're closer to teenage girls, we're closer to their age, they can easily open up to us and share their stories, and, you know, we can, through God's grace and wisdom,
because you find that a lot of people are actually looking for leaders. They're looking for people, and that's why even with all the social media apps, so you have like a Twitter, you have followers, or Instagram, you have followers. A follower is someone that is following you. So it might be for entertainment, but people are actually looking for something more than, you know, or someone. So a lot of people that are, like you say, successful or, you know, doing well should look back and try and reach out and, you know, bring someone up.
So that's basically the whole idea behind this.
But we've run out of time. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Viewers, thank you for watching. We hope you've enjoyed this program. If you want more information, you can either get Funto's book or read one of their blog posts. Their details are on the screen. If you know a teenager that is going through what we've talked about today, please make sure that they get this information. Until next week, stay blessed.